Yo, what's up guys? Today we're gonna make a fast video about every single best build for every crest. We're gonna be going through early and late game builds, specifically for the first 4 crests, and then the other 3 are super late game, so those will just be late game builds. We're gonna be explaining the tools, how they work, and what's the best tool that synergizes with every weapon. Alright, so first of all, let's start with the hunter. Alright, let's get into this. So for the hunter quest, you want to look for Threatstorm. Threatstorm will be one of your best skills that you're able to get super early into the game. So make sure to look out for Threatstorm and get it as soon as possible. The next weapons that you want to get early game is something like the threefold pin or the stink shard. They both do really well into bursting down bosses and doing a lot of damage. But besides that, the actual best would be something like the flint slate and flea brew. What the flint slate does is it buffs your weapon by percent damage, and flea brew increases your attack speed by a lot, by up to 33%, I'm pretty sure. So those two will synergize the absolute best with most of these weapons coming up soon, and they will pretty much be used for every single build, pretty much, because they're just that good. You're looking to get Druid Eye, you're looking to get Multi-Binder, and you're looking to get Weave Light. All of these will give you Silk and increase your healing. Druid Eye will increase Silk when you get hit. Multi-binder will increase your healing by 1, but it does increase your duration, but that's completely fine. Weave Light will increase your regeneration of silk, and it will give you an extra bar of silk regen. Now, why are these so good? Because silk is very important for the skill and healing, and all of these you can get before Act 2, as long as you have the needle in. For the yellow slots, it will be the same for every single build. You will have the dice, guaranteed. You will have weighted belt, it's not needed, and that's pretty much it. The third one can just be whatever you're more comfortable with, and there's nothing actually better to equip. Alright, now let me showcase this build to you really quick. Basically, you're looking to buff your weapon with damage, increase your attack speed, and it will look something like this, where you attack a lot, and it will also give you consecutive hit bonus, so it will increase your damage. And once you've hit the bar in the top left maximum, you will end up dealing 25 damage every attack. And if you hit them for 4 times consecutively, you will proc burn with flint slate, adding even more damage. So you can see how this build goes absolutely insane and will literally shred anything. Now onto the late build. You can actually run anything. You can still run this build, by the way, all the way till the end game. But if you want to change things up and have a little bit more fun, you can go something like cog flies and tax. Basically what these do, well, they will just do AFK damage. The attacks, you'll shock them on the ground as such, and they will do damage when the enemies step on them. They will do 7 per tick, and they do really a lot of damage, especially when you can shock a lot of them. Basically, you just want to shock 4 max, and then leave them, let them tick, and then shock them again. Otherwise, they will despawn when you shock them. Cogflies are basically the same, they're just AFK damage. Basically, they're guaranteed to hit and do damage for you while you attack, same as attacks. That's why I recommend these so much in builds, because you can attack and they do guaranteed damage, which is really strong. Now, this is obviously late game, so if you're looking for something that does a stupid amount of damage, I would recommend these two. Other tools I would go is something like the Curve Sickle, as this does a lot of damage. You can go Volt Vessel, Plasmium File, or Cog Work Wheel, as they all do a lot of damage, especially into specific bosses. Conqueror does a lot of damage into big fat bosses, but so does Cog Wheel and everything else pretty much. So this is up to you if you want to run it or not. You can also change things up. You can go Poison instead of one of these 3. I would recommend Weave Light instead of... Actually, I would recommend instead of Multi-Binder if you want to run Poison with Cogfly or Tax. Anyways, Curve Sickle will look something like this. It's really strong, and it will take multiple times, so if you can hit it correctly, it will take a lot. And the Volt Vessel will look something like this. You can also hit it and redirect it. It does a lot of damage. So these are the builds I would recommend for the Hunter. The Reaper will actually be the exact same build. You're pretty much looking to run the exact same stuff because it's a very slow attacking weapon. So Flea Brew and Flint Slate will just increase the damage by that much more. On top of the passive of the Reaper, where it gives you Silk when you heal and attack. And you can go just anything that gives you Silk and contributes to your Silk gain. Basically, when you heal, you will have this extra light around you, and when you hit them, you will regen silk. So this build is a silk machine. You will have way too much silk in your hand, especially with the increased attack speed, and you can just see how this goes crazy. And the fact that you can get this early also is insane. Now, this is pretty much the same with the other type of builds you can run. It's the same as the Reaper. I'm not gonna go over this again. I mean the Hunter, because it has the exact same amount of slots. Now Wonder is a little bit different. It has a very specific build you can run with, and that's pretty much the Flint Slate. It basically has an infinite Flea Brew built into it. So I would say Wonder is absolutely insane when it comes to weapons. You can run something similar, looking for Threadstorm and stuff that regenerates silk. I would recommend the Druid's Eye, and Multibinder is also really nice. You can change this later for something else, but we'll get into that. You can also go Injector Band, but that's for Act 2. So this is like the best early build you can have right here. The yellow tools actually don't really matter that much, as there isn't any good ones. But basically with this build, you just want to build up your silk as fast as possible. Now with this build, it will look something like this. You basically have infinite Flea Brew, and your attack speed is very, very high. So you buff up with Flint Slate, and you just go absolutely ham. Plus he has crits, that's 3x the damage. And as you just saw, I crit for 60 damage there. So this weapon is absolutely insane, and this build goes so hard. Now, obviously you can go Flea Brew instead of Flint Slate, which will kinda increase your attack speed, and by increasing your attack speed it will increase your crit chance. But Flea Brew also increases your damage, so it'll also increase the crit damage of your weapon. But basically if you want to go Flint Brew, it will look something like this. I would recommend Flint Slate, as it does just that much more damage. But those are actually the only two red tools you want to run with Wonder no matter what, because they're just that insane. Now later on to the game, I would recommend replacing Multibinder or the Weave Light, because your attack speed is so fast, you will regen silk very, very fast. So I would recommend actually the Weave Light, and you go something like the Long Claw. Now what Long Claw does is basically just increase your range by a lot, as you can see. And that's something that this build lacks a lot of, which is range, and this just makes it that much stronger. So that's the early and late game builds for Wonder. Now onto the Beast, there's literally one type of build you want to go, and that's the same thing again, which is Flint Slate Flea Brew. Yeah, I know there isn't like some super creative meta build, but we're going for the best builds. These are just simply the best builds. These are just straight up, it is what it is. It's very unfortunate, but it's still fine. Now, the Beast will give you extra attack speed, extra damage, and lifesteal with your healing instead of normal healing. So that's why Flea Brew and Flint Slate work so well with this weapon, as it will just compile a bunch of damage buffs and attack speed buffs, and it will go absolutely ham. Now for the yellow slots, you can just run whatever again. For the single blue slot, you can go Long Claw, or you can go something like Druid's Eye to increase your silk regen. But basically this is what the build will look like. You buff up, you even heal, and you just, I mean, just look at this. It goes absolutely ham. And it's so insane. Plus every hit heals you for 1 heart. So something like the Multibinder could also be a pretty good, where if you get 1 more hit, it will heal you for 1 more heart. I would say this is the only Beast build that's actually viable, and it's really, really strong, really fun to use. Now I would recommend also just standing still and attacking, as you saw what I did earlier, instead of sprint attacking or like doing the extra down attacks or whatever, because it's the fastest and it's the most stable, where you don't end up running into your enemies a lot, and it does the most damage. Alright, now for my favorite and best build in my opinion for these 3. These are all late game, so we will only be going through late game builds with these. Now the Witch Quest is very, very fun to use. The tools are the same as earlier, where you can run anything that's like meta, which is Curve Sickle, Stink Shard, Tax, you know, all of the above. But the one different thing about this, they want to go Plasmium File instead. So you just want to have one good tool on the top, which does DPS. I'd use something like Cogfly Tax personally, because they're passive damage. But if you go Plasmium File, now as many of you guys don't know, but the heal does AoE splash damage, and every single thing tentacle hit does 1 heart of healing, and they do damage. So the build with this would be something like, you can just go Threadstorm or whatever ability you prefer here. But for the red tools, we've explained those. And for the blue tools, you want to go you want to 100% go multi-bind, because we'll add an extra tick of damage to your healing when you use it. And you want to go something like the mirror. Now, instead of Wave Light, you can go Injector Band for faster healing and faster damage. And basically, this build will be an absolute warrior. It will be insane. I would recommend going Druid Eye instead of Long Claw or something that just gives you Silk in general. It will be absolutely insane. It does a ton of damage, just like so. Fortunately, the Pyro is on the way, so we're going to do that one more time. As you can see, I just did a bunch of damage to his HP, and it went down by quite a lot. Basically, what the mirror does is explodes and does more damage. And the reason for the Plasma File is, if you get low HP and you're like at 2 hearts and you want to go for this risky heal, you can just pop a Plasma File and now you're not one-shotted anymore. And you can go for your damage without being killed. And if you mess it up, then you have some more leeway with Plasma File and staying alive. So this is the best witch build straight up. This increases the damage done by speed and healing. It's really, really good all around build. Alright, now for the Architect Crest. I'm sure of you guys know how this crest works by now. But basically, with the Plasma File, we're gonna go over 2 different builds, one with Plasma File and one with just pure DPS. If you're running Plasma File, when I go something like Plasma File, Cogfly Tax, which are the most damage. But for the blue tools, you want to obviously go maximum Silk Regen, and you don't want to go Poison with a Plasma File because you will ruin it. You want to run something like this, where you have Spool Extender for more spool. You want to have Reverse Bind for an extra healing or recharge of your tools. And you want to go something like Druid Eye that just gives you more Silk when you get hit. It's really, really insane good build. And you want to go Plasma File, Cogfly, and Tax. The top 2 you can go whatever you prefer for most DPS. But basically this build will give you infinite regen just like so. And Plasma File actually has a cool little ability where if you recharge it with the Architect by looking up and recharging like this, and basically if you use them more and stack them up, you will go into a state where you have infinite healing. This is one of the absolute most insane builds. You just have infinite healing if you get hit, and it will recharge up slowly. You have an insane amount of Silk, and you have an insane amount of damage, and you can keep recharging these and staying alive pretty much forever if you want. Now onto the second Architect build. It's gonna look something similar, but instead of the infinite healing, you wanna go something like Curve Sickle or even Flint Slate for the increased charge attack damage. And you want to go with the Poison instead of Spool Extender. Basically, this will just add more and more damage to your tools, and you can run more of a tool build. With a Spool Extender, you can recharge your weapons basically whenever you want, or use it for heal. I mean, the Reverse Bind. And it will basically just be absolutely insane amount of damage where you just spam a bunch and a bunch of tools. Now for the last build and last crest will be the Shaman Crest. There's actually one build that you can run with this, which is Weave Light, Volt Filament, and the third one can be whatever you prefer. I prefer Druid's Eye. The Shaman already takes long to heal. Now, the reason why this is the only build is because Volt Vessel increases damage of all the skills. Weave Light makes it so you can regen enough Silk to use them infinitely. And basically, you just stay alive, wait for your Silk to regen, and you just spam your Silks, and they do so much damage. Now, for the abilities I recommend is Threadstorm once again. I recommend something like Pale Nails, Cross Stitch, or Rune Rage. That's completely up to you. It's whatever you prefer, but Threadstorm is an absolute must because it does the most damage. Now, these are the absolute best builds for every single crest. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree about these being the absolute best builds. In my opinion, nothing else beats these builds, especially when it comes to DPS. They're just the absolute highest, and the fact that you can get some of them even super early game is insane. Now, if this video helped you guys out to decide what kind of build or weapon you want to go with, I'd really appreciate if you guys dropped a follow and a like, as it would mean absolutely the world to me. If you guys want me to showcase the builds in action, make sure to drop a like so I know that you guys want that video done. And I'll basically go into every single crest and showcase it on a boss and how fast it kills them. And I appreciate any kind of support you guys give. Much love, guys. See you guys in the next video.